Soon, the U.S. Senate will take up the spending bill that the U.S. House approved by a narrow party line 217 to 215 vote. The bill aims to cut $2 trillion in spending over 10 years.
And one of those voting yes was Scottsdale Republican Congressman David Schweikert, who's joining us here on Arizona's Morning News. Congressman, what did you like and what did you dislike in the spending package?
Oh, you had to go right there. Thanks, LaDonna. Look, remember, this is not a regular budget. This is what we call a reconciliation budget. It's this crazy, insane dance we have to go through to build a box for all the committees to fill. So when it's done, it can go back to the Senate and not have to go through the 60-vote filibuster. So in some days, we'll do this, and then there'll be a whole nother budget coming. So this is the ability to do certain policies because at the end of this year, we have a whole series of individual and small business tax hikes coming that are already in the law. They happen automatically. And that's actually what's driving a lot of this right now is how do you extend those, but maybe not just universally, because we're going to have to then now when this makes it hopefully through the Senate, it comes back to us in Ways and Means and the other committees, and we have to figure out what we can actually cover and what we can't. And there may be some of those tax hikes we just don't have the capacity to extend or that may be allowed to actually happen.
So does this mean, okay, as you balance the scales here, does this mean possible cuts to Medicaid or other types of assistance? Well, I mean, something's got to give.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've found just remarkably disingenuous. There, in the instructions, there's not a single program called out. But you take something like what's called the Energy and Commerce Committee and say, we need a 4% of your authorizing scope. And they have huge amounts of jurisdiction. But immediately those who want to politicize, and then those who are just generally worried, say, well, one of the things in that committee's jurisdiction is Medicaid. And if you're going to take 4% out of your total committee jurisdiction, how much could come out of Medicaid? We actually believe we have a model that shows that we can find 4% in their committee on just things that are archaic. Systems where they haven't adopted technology, where they're still, sending faxes. How can you actually get some of these small margins of pay-fors by just modernizing?
All right, we're going to switch gears on you here. It looks like your North Scottsdale office is going to have some company every Monday as people say they are pledging to protest.
Destroys the lives of tens and soon to be hundreds of thousands of good, hardworking American civil servants who did nothing wrong other than go to work and do their jobs. And I can't stand it.
That's Andy Porter, one of your constituents, saying that he doesn't like the Elon Musk / Doge cuts. Will you ask to put Musk in front of a congressional committee to explain the cuts and how they make sense?
Well, actually, I'd be more interested in actually having some of the data scientists. What we've learned over the last couple of years, and actually in many ways, you got to give the Wall Street Journal credit for a project they began over a year ago looking at Medicare Advantage. And they hired data scientists. And what we're finding is as you grind through, the data models start to say, hey, do you know you have this? You know you have this person who hasn't shown up for work in several months. You have duplicative contracts. But we need to have a moment of seriousness on the scale. If you've had 70,000 federal employees say they're willing to take early retirement, guess how many days of borrowing, just the borrowing, your federal government, because your government borrows about $6 billion every single day. It only covers about 3.5 days of borrowing when you actually remove those salaries and the benefits. There seems to be this massive disconnect in understanding the scale of the financial stress and trouble our federal government's in. And everything that Doge or the other researchers have found, it's important. We found real waste and fraud. But its actual total dollar amounts are still pretty small compared to our bleed, where it looks like we're going to borrow well over $2 trillion this year.
So basically, you're saying, long story short, let's look at the math first. Don't everyone panic just yet. But they're still panicking anyway. I mean, how can you?
No, but that's actually part of the politics. And to be honest, the politicians get up and say crazy things. The news media that needs clicks, the activists that want to raise money for their causes, being sort of hyperventilating and trying to hunt for dopamine hits is what we do today. That's just modern society. But it makes it really hard to try to do rational policy where you're grinding through saying, oh, there's this horrible thing happening. Oh, it turns out it's just a fraction of the labor force, of the spending, of those things. And we still have the overall crisis coming. Last year, for every dollar we took in tax receipts, we spent $1.39.
That's North Scottsdale Congressman David Schweikert joining us live here on Arizona's Morning News. Thank you very much, Congressman.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.